Hello, hello, and thank you once again for tuning into my newest podcast, Real Talk About Life and Relationships. For those of you who have been tuning in, or if this is your first time watching, I'm really hopeful that you're getting something out of this, or that you will get something out of this that will help you to navigate your life a little bit better. I always say that we need all the help that we can get because life is extremely difficult, and so I'm just trying to do my part to help people get there. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie K, aka Sage the Coach. I am a multi-certified and master life and relationship coach. I am also an author. I have other businesses. I do a lot of other things, but that's what this podcast is about today. So I will just focus on that. And so if you're interested in having a free session with me, you can go to my website at www.unveilingthespirit.com for a free session. And so on that website, you can also find out more about my books and the courses and stuff that I offer, the workshops, courses and workshops and things like that. And so all of them are relationship based, whether it's a relationship with yourself or other people. And I'm going to get into some of that today because even now I have a bunch of stuff coming to my mind why I just said that. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. So if you're, you can watch my podcast every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. I typically am kind of stay on schedule with that for the most part. Sometimes stuff comes up and things like that, but for the most part, you can watch me on Thursdays at 12 p.m. And then you can also watch me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Sometimes I post on LinkedIn, but not very, very much. So yeah, you can also watch me via on the Roku and the Apple Store and the Google Play Store via the Entertainment Theater app. So you can go ahead and download that. And there's a lot of other podcasts and stuff like that on that platform as well. It's for indie and up and coming creators and things of that nature. So it'll be great if you can download that to go ahead and support those people. And so I think that's it. My whole little rundown when you can watch me. Oh, make sure you like, follow, share, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And please be sure to ask me questions because I like to I don't want to just talk just to talk. I like to kind of cater what I'm saying to your specific questions that might come to mind because it's one thing to kind of hear this stuff and it's another to know how to apply it when it comes to your own personal life. And so it's very, very important that if you have questions, you go ahead and ask them so that I can help you to narrow this down to how to deal with it for yourself. And so, last week I talked about dealing with your issues, and then I gave a little recap as far as how we got there with the dealing with your issues part. You can go back and watch that if you're interested. But today is going to be part 2 of dealing with your issues because there's a lot to unpack here. And I want to try to stay on this topic for the rest of the month, but I'm not sure if I will do that. But for the most part, I want to try to stay on this topic for the rest of the month so that people can get a really good idea of what they need to do because people not knowing what to do is the reason why people are not being raised right or being damaged when they're raised. People are also divorce rate is really high, lots of dysfunction relationships, people feeling lost and things like that with their lives. Like it really is the foundation for everything. And too many people don't keep these things in mind on a daily or regular basis in order to make the most of them. And so I want to share this information to help people to do that. And that is why I'm doing my podcast. And so I always say that we should learn this stuff when we're younger. And every time I do a course and a coaching session or whatever, people always say they wish they would have learned this information when they were younger. And so I just found out I went to my daughter's school last week or so, and they were doing registration for the next year for high school. And they had an interpersonal relationship class that you can take at school. And so I was very excited to see that. I went over there and I asked her, what are all the things that they cover and things of that nature. And so it was really, really good to see that it is being taught in high school. Unfortunately, she says a lot of kids don't sign up for the class. And when they do sign up for the class, it's usually a bunch of girls. And so a lot of guys don't sign up for the class. And so I'm glad to see that it's offered in school. And we need to keep encouraging our young people in that direction because, like I said, it is the foundation for everything. And we need to start letting our boys know that it's okay for them to have feelings. There's nothing wrong with that. And that they need to get some relationship skills as well, because it's unfortunate when you have, and of course, girls kind of naturally gravitate more towards that type of stuff, but it's kind of it's not going to work if you have a lot of girls that have these interpersonal relationship skills. And I'm just talking about in terms of the course, not necessarily in life in general. And then they learn some skills, but then when they get in a relationship with somebody who does not have those skills, it still can create a problem. And so I take that back to my own experience of being married for 15 years. And I did get divorced like 2 years ago now, because there was just some things that, it gets so ingrained in us as, humans. We get like, what is it? I want to say socialized, but we get this idea about life and relationships from our upbringing. And sometimes those things can be very, very difficult to break. And when people are unwilling to do the hard work that it takes to break them, it will eventually lead to a, I don't want to say dysfunctional relationship, but a broken relationship. So you and that person are not necessarily going to last if you actually want to be happy. Now, if you want to be in a miserable relationship, you can do that for 30, 40, 50 years. And then a lot of times people talk about how the older people stay together for longer, and that young people don't do that anymore. And while I do appreciate, like, I feel like you have to take the good out of everything the lessons that come to you in life, every situation. You have to identify the good, you have to identify the bad, and then you want to take the good or the lessons that it teaches you out of that situation. And so you get a lot of people who just kind of blanket, if somebody does one thing bad, they're a bad person. Or if a generation does two things right, it's a good generation, and then the current one is bad. So you shouldn't do that. And it goes back to being open-minded, which I always talk about the importance of being open-minded, which maybe I'll get into today and maybe I won't. But you have to, in being open-minded, you have to not just blanket a situation, but actually kind of dissect it and see what you can extract from it that is positive and that increases your knowledge and awareness of all the different facets that's going on around you, including yourself. And this is what it basically boils down to: yourself, other people, life, and God. And so, and you can put the world in there too, because we still have to grapple with science, but for the most part, it boils down to those things. So you always want to be extracting information, and your brain does it automatically. But if you can be intentional about it, you're more in control of that process, as opposed to just picking up and learning things that go into your subconscious mind, and then you don't even realize that you believe those things. And so it's going to be very important for you to have that frame of mind in every situation, so that you can continuously extract the information that you need to, once again, as I talked about before, grow as a person. And so yeah, so this information is very, very important. And I'm happy to see that, especially since COVID, the culture is kind of gravitating towards that. But, we still have a lot of work to do and a long way to go as individuals and relationships, society, community, the world, things like that. So not to get off on a tangent, which I already did. So today I want to dive into what I talked about last week, which was dealing with your issues. I talked about the ways that you can know that you have issues, because a lot of the time people are not really aware that they have issues, and it comes from being out of tune with yourself. And so that's a little bit of what I want to talk about today. But I want to just do a little bit of a recap for the ways that you can know that you have issues. Number one is, what is your relationship like with yourself? Do you take care of yourself? Are you kind to yourself? Do you have healthy habits? When you're by yourself, how do you feel when you're by yourself? What are some of the things that you think and believe about yourself? And so that is going to be the first thing that you should pay attention to when it comes to understanding if you have issues. Now, some people, I kind of lost my train of thought here because my mouth is getting dry. So yeah, so understanding your relationship you have with yourself, because everything that you do in life comes from that. Everything that you, every decision that you make, your perspective that you have, um, your habits, everything, even your career choice is going to come from, and the people you choose to surround yourself with is going to come from how you feel about yourself. So if you feel like you are a failure, you're going to make choices in life that exemplify that. And so a lot of times people get stuck in thinking that life is doing something to them, not realizing that they're actually reflecting their beliefs about themselves, other people, the world, and God onto life. And so you're creating that those experiences that you're having through your perception. Now, it's not 100% you, but I would say it's probably about 80%. And so when you can start to dissect and understand those things about yourself, you can see life from a different perspective, which will allow you to make different choices. And so whatever you do is going to come from inside of you. Even a lot of times, the way people react to stuff, they will say, well, it's because so and so made me do this, or you blame your reactions on other people. But that's, again, 80% of the time is not the case. It boils down to what is already going on inside of you, because you always have a choice, a some options as far as how you choose to respond to stuff. And the way that you respond to stuff has to do with what is already inside of you. And so, again, you can control those things. You can control more the things that come out of you. And so that's one thing about having a relationship with yourself. Another thing, way you can tell if you have issues, which I'm going to attach it to the relationship that you have with yourself, is your habits. So again, those are things that are coming out of you. If your habits are unhealthy, if they're destructive, things of that nature, that's an indication of where you are emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and things like that. And so you need to keep an eye on your habits. If you have negative, destructive, self-sabotaging habits, so to speak, then that's another sign that you might have an issue. Another one is the choices that you make. See, that's why I said it kind of goes into the first one that I said, which is your relationship with yourself, because all of these things come out of that. And so the choices that you make are also signs that you might have an issue. So again, it boils down to negative things, unhealthy things, destructive things, hurtful things. When you are continuously seeing a pattern in yourself like that, even when it comes to your mood and things of that nature, then that is a sign that you have an issue. The fourth way you can know if you have issues that need to be dealt with is through your relationships. And I talk a lot about the importance of relationships and the purpose that they really serve in our lives, because a lot of people have the wrong idea about relationships. They think that relationships are to make them happy and be fulfilled and have companionship and stuff like that. And that's not completely wrong. But those things are a byproduct of a good relationship. If you don't have a good relationship with yourself, you're not going to have a good relationship with other people. And then that's going to affect, just like I said before, the stuff that comes out of us is what shapes our reality. Is going to affect your relationship with other people and your ability to have that type of relationship that you want, that companionship, that closeness, that love, time, attention, stuff like that. And so, but through those relationships, because relationships help us to see things about ourselves that we would not see, so that we can grow. And then once you grow and you and that person grow together, that is how you get that ideal relationship that most people want. And so, but if you have these relationships and you keep hearing the same thing from people about how you do things and you doing hurtful things and stuff like that, and you never take the time to sit back and kind of dissect yourself and figure out what's going on with you, you're not going to be that is a sign that you have some issues that need to be worked out. If they don't come out in any other way, which they will come out, just so you know, they come out in some way, shape, or form when you don't deal with them. But if they don't come out in any other way, they will absolutely come out in your relationships. And so sometimes people get comfortable with their issues when they're by themselves and they just grapple with them. I've heard a lot of people say, I know how to manage my demons and things like that. And then they just deal with it because they're not sure sometimes how to get out of it or how to get rid of these things. And so they manage them. And you might be okay with that in yourself, have it to some illusion of control to some degree. But when you start getting relationships with other people, it is not going to be that way. And it will really bring some things to the forefront of your life that you need to deal with. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. They just end up getting into arguments and pointing, and relationships don't grow. And this is the primary reason why. And so you need to use your relationships in your life to be mirrors to you so that you can see yourself, so that you can grow. And the byproduct of that is healthy, loving relationships. And so, so those are 4 ways that you can know if you have issues. Just to recap very, very quickly, your relationship with yourself, and that includes your mood, your habits, and your choices. And then your relationships with other people will also let you know the issues that you have. And so one thing that I want to get into today, and I'm probably going to wrap it up a little bit quicker today just because I have some appointments and stuff that I need to go to. But one thing about your relationship with yourself is being in tune with yourself. And so if you're not in tune with yourself, so these other things that I'm talking about, like your mood and your habits and your choices, these things can easily become like an autopilot type of thing in your life, and you're not in tune with actually what's going on inside of you. You can lose touch with yourself. And I think a lot of people, especially with how busy life is now, it's very, very easy to lose touch with yourself and not realize that you have done that. And so you're going to have to be in tune with yourself. And this comes from what type of relationship you have with yourself. You have to understand your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, your character, your personality, what's important to you, things like that. And so it's very good to, write these things down or take note of them somehow in the process of getting to know yourself, so that you can be in tune with yourself enough to have a good relationship with yourself. And then that's going to translate over into you having good relationships with other people. And so I'm just writing something down really quickly. And so I have a I guess you can say like a small ebook that I want to put together very soon. It's just some steps on how you can get to know yourself and what does it mean to be in tune with yourself, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. And so a lot of people are, again, out of touch with themselves. And one way that you can know when you're out of touch with yourself is when you are having an emotional reaction to something and you don't know how you feel. You just get confused. And some people, because they get overwhelmed by how they feel, they can't explain how they feel, they just end up shutting down, which is what a lot of men do, I think. I don't want to speak for all men, but I've kind of seen a pattern in that. But I've seen a lot of women do it too. So you don't know how you feel. You don't want to feel, especially if it's negative feeling. And then you don't go through the process of actually processing that. So in a previous video, a previous podcast, I talked about what the purpose of emotions are for. Now emotions have several purposes, but I'm just focusing on this specific one for the topic that we're going over today. And I will do another podcast in the future of all the different roles that emotions play in your life. But one of the main things they do is to help you process information. So your brain is like a massive computer. We are spirits with a soul who live in a body. And so as we go through life, because we were designed to grow, we are constantly taking in information. And through that information, we are to extract meaning about who we are, who other people are, what the world is about, and who God is. And so as we extract this information, it begins to form our belief system, and then we make choices and decisions out of that belief system. A lot of the times we do it subconsciously. So your emotions, when you extract information, one of the main ways you do that is through how you feel, because how you feel, it tells you how something is affecting you. And so a lot of times people use truth outside of this context, which means they use emotions outside of this context, which means you're not processing information correctly. But the point is to let you know how something is affecting you. And now you take that and do the work and make the connections within yourself about what the value of that thing is, what it means to you, what it means to other people, and stuff like that. And so when you don't understand how you feel, you cut that whole process off. Or when you block your emotions, you cut that whole process off. You are not learning the things that you need to learn to continue to grow, because you're cutting the process off in the beginning. And so You have to be in tune with your emotions. And when you feel stuff, even if you don't understand what it means right away, to take some time for yourself and try to figure out what is going on with you, how something is affecting you. And so, because a lot of stuff that we do is going on in our subconscious mind, but that's still who you are, and you need to know how something is affecting you. If somebody says something and then it makes you feel you're hurt and you feel insecure, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they did was hurtful or insecure, but you need to understand, okay, why did them saying that affect me in that way, and do some soul searching and try to figure out what it is. This is how you get to know yourself. This is how you get to figure out if you have issues that you need to work on, if you need to grow in some certain areas, where you need to make adjustments, where you need to grow, and things like that, where you might have hurt and trauma and stuff like that. So you won't get to the root of those things if you don't first take time to figure out, okay, how do I feel and why do I feel this way? Then from there, you kind of judge, is this a valid feeling or is this invalid? And if it's either one of those, it's another process that you go into in trying to fine tune those things. I know a lot of people will be like, this sounds like a lot of work. I don't have time for that. I'm not interested in doing that. And if it is a lot of work, but it's very, very important and crucial. If you don't do it, it is going to affect who you show up as in your life. It is going to affect your relationships. It is going to affect your choices. So you decide if it's worth your time and energy or not. We do a lot of things in life that is not necessarily worth our time and energy. Even when it comes to other people in relationships, we're trying to manage people that we don't need to be managing. We're staying in situations that we don't need to stay in. We waste a lot of time. Sometimes we waste a lot of money. So why can we not do the things that matter most? Especially when it comes to ourselves. And so it's a lot of work, it's difficult, but it's absolutely worth it. And so, but it's your choice if you're going to make it a priority or not. So you want to, get to know yourself, how you feel, what you think about things. Why do you think those things? I mean, you can dig as deep as your mind will let you go. And the more you get to digging, the more you're going to find stuff. You may find out that you have a bias against overweight people, but then as in your perspective that you have now, you can say, you know what, that's not necessarily right. I need to change that. And where you change your beliefs and your ideas and things like that is in your conscious mind. You can put them back in the file cabinet in your subconscious mind after you change them. And then that's a whole different process of solidifying those things. But yeah, like even through this whole George Floyd period, there were a lot of people, white people, that figured out they were racist. Like they really thought that they were not, and they didn't have a problem, and very quick to say, oh, I have black friends. Some of them were married to black people, but then they found out, oh my goodness, I do have some racist thinking. And so you have to dig in there sometimes, and not sometimes, you do have to dig in there and figure out what's going on with you and things like that, so that you can continue to grow as a person and hopefully to be a better person. And so, so you have to be in tune with yourself. And again, I'm going to put out this ebook, a little short activity book, just to give you some steps on how to get to know yourself. And then through that, you can branch off into if you have issues or not. We're very complicated beings. And a lot of times I don't understand people who think that there's not a God, because we are just way, way too complicated for there not to be. And then, that's a whole different conversation. But we're magnificent at the same time. Very complicated, very fragile, but very amazing. We can create, we can destroy, we can love. It's a big deal. So anyway, get in tune with yourself, and then understanding what's going on with you, especially in terms of male or female, because society teaches men to not pay attention to their emotions, and so they only get to express or feel comfortable expressing basic emotions like anger and happiness and desire. And that is pretty much it. When it gets a little bit more complicated, they're very quick to shut it down and not dissecting what's going on with them, because emotions are weakness. That is insane. And I'm sorry to say that for anybody who might be offended by that, but that is insane. When you think about how the human mind and the human body and our experience of life is made up, emotions have a very, very important purpose into helping us navigate life and then grow as people, have fruitful relationships, have healthy lives, and make healthy choices. For you to negate that and say that something is wrong with emotions in and of themselves, you're automatically putting yourself in a position to not grow, to not be happy, to not be fruitful, to not be fulfilled. And so, yeah, emotions can be complicated and sometimes they can be very, very uncomfortable and painful, which is why people run from them and because they don't understand them. But you need to take that complication and that pain and sit with it for a minute and not run from it and try to understand it, because in doing so, you will understand yourself and again, the other aspects of life much more deeply. So yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of wrap up here a little bit quickly today. I'm only wrapping up about 4 or 5 minutes early, but I just want you to sit in that for a minute, and then I'll come back next week and kind of pick up from there, because there are going to be some differences, which I started to talk about last week about the way men and women do this. For men, it's going to be a little bit more of a hurdle when it comes to their emotions, because they feel things and they have no idea why. They don't have any idea where it came from, and then they just react, and they just kind of stay stuck like that. But really, you need to figure out, you need to go a little bit deeper than that and just not react, but understand why you're reacting, because that's the only way you're going to disarm the bomb, so to speak. So yeah, so for men, they have to get over this hurdle of thinking that emotions are weakness. They're not. They're a part of your operating system. You know, it's how you process information about life and understand things. You can't negate that. You can't eliminate that without causing some problems, some significant problems in your programming. And then for women, it's a little bit more of a different path. Again, not all, but women tend to lean on their emotions too much and think that instead of just using it to process information, that their emotions somehow represent the truth all the time. They do not. And so I'm going to go into that a little bit more, and hopefully I can bring a guy on to talk about the male side of it a little bit more, because I don't like to so much speak on things that I don't know, and I'm not a man, so I can't completely tell you how men feel about things. But I want to dive into this so you guys get some really good ideas and some tips and insights on dealing with yourself and dealing with your issues so that you can grow, be happy, have good relationships. So, but that's it for today. And, you know, thank you for tuning in once again. Make sure you follow, like, share, invite people to my page, subscribe, and that you tune in next week if this is some information that you really want to have, and to stay updated about my ebook about getting to know yourself. So thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you next week. Bye.